Welcome to the Natural Reward Podcast. I'm your host, Owen Gilbert, and today I'm excited to have my friend Andrés Vega as my guest. Andrés is a native Costa Rican conservation biologist and Serena Research Lab administrator. Andrés was born in San Jose and spent his life promoting research, education, and conservation in Corcovado National Park in Costa Rica. Andrés is an experienced herpetologist, entomologist, and botanist, and nature photographer, and he's been involved with numerous field courses and research projects, including courses at Tufts University, UT Austin, Washington University, LSU, Sweden, OTS, and Laurentian University in Canada. And he's also been involved with research projects at the University of California, Northridge, with the Red-Eyed Tree Frog Project. Today I will ask Andrés to relay his passion for the crown jewel of Costa Rica's world-renowned national park system, Corcovado National Park, and why he has devoted his life to conservation efforts.
Hi, Owen.
Andrés, what were some of the parks in Costa Rica that you visited when you were young before stepping foot in Corcovado?
So the national park system actually started right about the time I was born in 1970. My experience with nature actually did not start with national parks. My experience with nature started because I was growing up in a coffee farm, and there was a lot more nature then. I remember when I was a kid looking at the butterflies in the butterfly farm. I remember seeing morpho butterflies. I remember seeing frogs that are now very difficult to see. They were just around here. But I guess going directly to your question, that which were the first national parks that I visited? I visited probably Poás National Park, which is very close to San Jose. It's one of the biggest geysers in the world, biggest in terms of the crater. The crater, it's about 1 kilometer, 3/4 of a mile, that is. I remember going to Manuel Antonio National Park, which is a national park in the middle of the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. It has beautiful beaches, but my world was a lot more nature than the national parks.
And where was the coffee farm?
The coffee farm was in a town called Tibás. This town is right now in the middle of the city. Tibás is 2 miles from downtown San Jose. Again, back in 1970, this was coffee farms. And today, 2021, I have a bank right across the street. I got the McDonald's. I got a, Subway. You got a Taco Bell within a block from my house. So the place has changed a lot.
You were first getting into natural history right at the time when the parks were being formed.
Exactly.
Because you were probably 5 years old running around collecting insects and whatever you do.
Well, yes. The first story that I have from my mother, she told me that as a kid, I would just go out and in the coffee farm, chase cockroaches, grab them and put in a tin can. I made them run inside the tin, going round and round, just for the fascination of seeing an animal. She was upheld because it was a cockroach. But again,
did they have any of those really big ones there?
Not at the time, no. But then again, they're not the city cockroaches. These are coffee cockroaches, which are different. And also, I remember, again, I started a butterfly collection when I was about 4 years old. I grabbed a coffee sack and it was a really made butterfly net. It was really bad. But with that, I was able to chase butterflies and catch them. I remember my dad he bought his shirts from this store, and they made the displays for the shirt. That's this little cardboard boxes at the front were only plastic, transparent plastic. So those were my first butterfly boxes. I would pin the butterflies with the pins that came in the shirts, in my dad's shirts, and I would put them a little bit of styrofoam in those boxes. And so there were shirt boxes where I had my collection.
I've got a video of you holding one of those big cockroaches at Serena. It's frantically trying to get away, and it's got little spines on its legs.
Yeah.
So people in the United States have never seen a cockroach that big. They're like 4 inches long, probably.
Yeah, they're about 4 inches long, exactly.
Do you know what those are called?
I know the scientific name, which is Archimandrita.
So how old were you when you first set foot in Corcovado?
Well, I was 16 years old, and the way I I set foot there was when I was in high school. A friend of mine or a classmate, she used to work at her father's hotel. It was a small boutique hotel. And she was at the reception, and these two Americans that were there came and asked her if she knew anyone who was able to track animals. At school, one of my friends, one of my classmates, he had invited me since I was probably 12 or 13 years old to go hunting quail. And then hunting was an excuse for me to go out to the field and see animals. I really did not have that passion for hunting, but it was more to see the wildlife. And if we got to hunt something, I got to see it really, really close. It was, again, sort of another fascination for me to be able to see an animal up close. We started hunting quails and doves, but then we started looking for other things to hunt. So that showed me that there was a need for me to learn how to track animals. So I started doing that. I learned how to track animals. Again, I was really young. I was a teenager. And when we got to school, my classmates, she would hear these things. So when these Americans came and asked her if she knew anyone, she said, well, the only one that I know is a classmate, but he's only 16 years old. She gave them my phone number and they contacted me. They asked me if I was willing to be a guide for them to Corcovado National Park. I had only heard of Corcovado National Park. I'd never been there. I told them I never laid a foot in Corcovado, but I could hold my own tracking animals. I was really good at that. But I had a friend, a much older friend, who had been in Corcovado. So I said, I can go to him and ask him for all the information so we could go to Corcovado. And they agreed on it. Long story short, we went to Corcovado. I never laid a foot there. But my friend told me to look for an American called Larry Gilbert, that he recently had built a lab there, that he might have been there, and that he could help me because he had a trail system there. He told me, go find him and you would be able to make your life easier going to Corcovado as a guide to these Americans. So that's what I did. First American I saw didn't fit the description that my friend gave me. Then the second man that was coming down the trail, he fit the description, and I asked him if it was Larry Gilbert. He told me yes.
Before you get into this story, is it true that Corcovado actually means quail?
The story is like this. There is a quail whose song resembles the word Corcovado. Let me see if I can. The bird goes something like Corcovado. Exactly, it goes like Corcovado, and it's one of the first birds to call in the morning. So this group of quails will go Corcovado, Corcovado, Corcovado. That's the only explanation I have for the name.
And then is it not true that some of the animals in Corcovado track you, so you don't necessarily have to track them?
Yeah, I mean, Corcovado is an amazing place. That's one of the few places the only place in Costa Rica, I guess, or in America, where humans are not in the top of the food chain. I've been chased by crocodiles inland. I have been followed by jaguars as well. Again, it's quite wild. Luckily, there haven't been an accident of a animal attacking people, but it is wild. There are things out there.
What about Charlie?
I
mean, it wasn't an accident. He's an amazing athlete. Was able to.
Yeah, but I think
the mountain lion off.
He fended a mountain lion off, but I think that was two things going on. Charlie wouldn't back off, and I think the animal was a juvenile that was just trying to see how much could he bite, and he just got into a really tough one. He really tried to get into Charlie, and Charlie was again not somebody that would fold. And
that's Charlie Forster, the guy that was studying the tapirs.
Yeah, Charlie Forster. He studied tapirs for 10 years actually in Corcovado. One of the best tapir projects in the world that I have seen.
Okay, so you run into my dad. What do you say to you?
So I asked him, I said, are you Larry Gilbert? And he said, yes. I said, well, we have a mutual friend. His name is Ruben Canet. Ruben Canet he's an amazing entomologist, and he had been Larry Gilbert's assistant, your dad's assistant. Larry started laughing and says, "Oh, don't tell me that crazy guy is here." I says, "No, but I am." And he asked me how did I met Ruben, because again, I was 16 years old. Ruben was probably 44 years at the time. And I told him that we shared the same passion for butterflies, and we live in the same town in Tibas. And I met him because he had a butterfly collection that was bigger than the National Museum's collection of butterflies.
In the back of his bicycle shop, right?
In the back of the bicycle shop, he had an amazing greenhouse with butterflies, and in the back he had a little shack, and in that shack, amazing collection of butterflies. So again, I told him no, when I was here, I met him because we go out on the weekends collecting butterflies, and I told him my situation. I says, well, I was hired to come to track animals to Corcovado, but I never laid a foot. And I was talking to Ruben, and he said, maybe you could help me. So your dad was working with long-winged butterflies. And at the time he just said, well, I'll give you a map if you can help me mark butterflies. And I told him, well, I never marked butterflies before. So he told me he handed me a net and says, oh, go catch that one. So I went and caught it and says, what is it? So I had to identify it, and then he was checking to see whether I knew my butterflies, and I came out showing him that I knew enough, and he says, okay, let's do the following. You're going to mark some butterflies for me. I'll give you a map. The map has stations, and you will mark whichever station closer to where you were catching the butterfly. So that was my first introduction to science. I've been in nature and I have seen a lot. But your dad was the first introduction that I had to actual gathering data.
I remember that map was a little bit secretive because they didn't want the tourists to get a hold of it and get out on these trails that were, some of them pretty primitive and you could get lost easily. So he tried to not hand it out to just anybody that wanted it, right?
Right. Not only that, but I mean, he also did. So there's a trail system of over 35 kilometers of researcher trails, and we call them researchers because, again, we also wanted, for the most part, to have less impact of people going around. But the station has really good trails for tourism that are better marked.
So what was your first impression of the park?
Let me describe to you a little bit of how was that first day, and you will have an idea of the impression that I had. So I walk out with these Americans, and just as we leave the station, there's a creek, the Camaronal. I find one of these plants where the long-winged butterflies like to get their pollen. So they don't only feed on nectar, but they feed on pollen. So I look at the butterflies that were going there, and I start looking around the stream, and I see a little caiman hiding under some leaf litter in the stream. So I sort of measured it. I could only see a little bit of its back, and I thought it was about 3 to 4 feet long. While we were there, I was just showing the butterflies, and I told the guys, what would you do if I told you there was a caiman within 6 feet from where we are? And this guy started running through a thicket of acmea, which is a plant related to the pineapple, really thorny, and this guy's got all cut up, and I just says, well, I just told him, well, if I don't run, you shouldn't run. So I sort of showed them where the caiman was, and I kind of sensed where the head was, and I grabbed him by the neck and I pull it out, and they were just fascinated that I just pulled out a caiman from the stream that they couldn't see.
Had you done that before?
I don't think so. Now that in retrospective, I don't think so. But again, I just handed it to them, and they were really fascinated, taking pictures of each other with a caiman. And while they were taking pictures, I was just grabbing butterflies and putting numbers on them and measuring them and getting data for your dad. So after they had enough pictures, we kept on walking, and we went down the Pavo Trail that goes to a river called the Pavo River. So we kept on walking. I found some tracks, peccary tracks. At the beginning, there were just a few, and then more and more, I started seeing a lot more.
That was one of the more developed areas by the farmers, right? Kind of between the station and the Pava River. at that time. That's all overgrown now, but there were a lot of clearings there
Yes,
in the 70s.
yes. Even a one part of that trail, it was even an airstrip that was parallel to the beach, and most of that trail was done by a bulldozer.
Was it still pretty open at this time?
The park was established in 1975, so it's been 11 years since it was left to grow back. So I remember seeing a lot of grass, and I believe that if you go there, you see a lot of grass. But the place there grows very, very fast. The vegetation grows very, very fast. Not as open. It was not as open that you could say, oh, this is where the airstrip was. But you could definitely see places where the people might have had cattle. It was a lot like a washboard, but it was too large for people to walk. So it was mainly, that washboard was mainly done by cows just walking that trail. And it was really, really difficult.
You were in this area when you started seeing the signs of the peccaries on this first
Not
day?
yet. No. We were still close to the station, and that part was an early secondary forest, because in that area also a lot of the settlers used live fences, and one of the trees that they use for live fencing is it's a fruit called spondias, and that fruit was the seed. The fruit and the seed were eaten by the peccaries. So the peccaries came to this area really close to the station, and that's why we found them. I remember that herd was about 500 animals. At one point, we got to the herd and we saw it cross parts of the Pavo River, and we would see them crossing in little groups, like 4, 7, 3, and then another 4 or 5. And we were there about half hour just waiting for the peccaries to go by.
That's what I remember in the 80s when I was a kid. Just those huge herds of peccaries crossing the airstrip for 45 minutes or an hour. It would take them that long just for the herd to cross this clearing.
Exactly. And I'm sorry to say, but those big herds are gone. They're not that many. Poaching has taken a toll.
You smell them, right? First. Usually.
Oh, yes. So we first saw the tracks and we kept on walking, and then these animals have a really strong musk. So sure enough, when we get closer, we get to smell them. In some cases, when you're out in the field, you smell them before you see them. But this large herd was using the trail as a trail for themselves. Like, it was easier for them to just walk from point A to point B through the trail than going bushwhacking, unless they had a certain patch that they wanted to forage in. These animals were just moving by the trails. So we got to the Pavo River. That's when we met the herd of peccaries. And again, we just walked there. They wanted to see the peccaries up close. I told them, well, there were stories of these peccaries that are really aggressive. I would suggest you to be close to a tree in case you have to climb up a tree. So look for a not so big tree or not so small, something that you can really climb on. And at one point we were
at this point you hadn't encountered peccaries anywhere else yourself?
I had encountered the collared peccary.
The collared peccary is the same species that's like in Texas, and
Exactly.
It's known as a javelina.
Exactly.
And it's about half the size of a white-lip
Probably
peccary.
Yeah.
And the herds are a lot smaller. So
yeah, the herds that I've encountered before were about 12 animals, and now I'm talking about what I would say was something like 500 animals or more. Anyway, so I started getting closer. One of these guys wanted to get closer. The other one climbed up a tree, and we get closer. At one point, one peccary comes charging, so I stood my ground, and then another one just came from the side, and I stood my ground as well. And I was okay. I can hold two, and I back up myself to a tree. And then a third one came in and said, okay, I can't hold three. So I started running. The Pavo River was not too far. It was probably some 20 meters behind, let's say 60 feet behind me. So I started running, and I just jumped into the river. The peccaries chased me, but I knew that they would not chase me up to the river where they wouldn't have any footing. It was sort of a false charging. I mean, not the whole herd, just some of the bigger males.
Those big males are intimidating, aren't they?
Yeah, and
They start popping their tusks.
They clack their tusks. Yeah, and it's a very loud sound, and you thinking that this is done with the tusks, and the tusks are pretty much like meat cutters. They're scissors.
And they probably weigh. I mean, those big males are probably 150 pounds, right?
They're big. I don't think they're that big. I would say
a deep grunt that's really
intimidating noise. Yes, and even the jaguars are known to respect them. They have a healthy respect to a very large group. Anyway, we jump into the Pavo River, and these tourists were really amazed of what they had experienced. We start walking in the river, and all of a sudden I see something. And I tell them, I'm not really sure what it.
The Pavo River at this point is almost like a big creek. It's not a big river, right?
It's not a big river, but at this point, I would say we were walking in water that was knee deep, and it was probably about 7 to 10 yards across. So
not a big river.
Not a big river, no. And we were walking through that river, and then suddenly I'd see something. I was not really sure what it was, but it didn't make sense in my head. So I said, no, let's go let's go climb up a bank. And I got him out of the water, and they say, wow, what, is it a crocodile coming? No, just climb up a bank and look down. And as we climbed up and looked down, there was several bull sharks. I would say about 5 bull sharks just coming upriver. And the bull sharks were 5 feet long. I mean, they were big enough to ruin someone's day, and we're really far from the ocean, or what I would consider really far from the ocean. It was amazing because, again, it was not too deep, so we could see it really well. We could see them really well. These guys were just going upriver.
How deep do you think it was where the bull sharks were?
Again, about knee deep.
Oh, wow.
So now this guy says, well, just think about it. We just saw a caiman, so there must be crocodiles. And so I told him, yeah, from what I've heard, they told me that there are large crocodiles in the Sirena River. So this is an amazing place. So we kept on walking. We got to a bigger river. We got to the Sirena River, and there was a part where we had to swim across it, and the guys were sort of reluctant to do it. He says, hey, we just saw bull sharks up there, and you told us that there were crocodiles here. And I said, yeah, well, there are. Which what we have to do is we don't have to make any splashing noises. Just be one more animal here. So they followed suit. They decided, oh, we're going to do this, and so we swam across the Sirena, and then I started listening to the waves crashing. And I says, oh, so the beach is really close. So we better go down, try to get to the beach so we can go back by the beach and get to the station just before lunch. And they both agreed and said, yeah, sure, let's do that. So we did a little bushwhacking, and then we ended up to what I thought it was another meander of the river. But this one looked a lot calmer, and I said, well, probably it's because it's closer to the ocean. and it looked a little bit wider. So I said, okay, we have to swim this one as well. So we did. We swam that one. Again, I told them the same thing. Let's not splash. I remember I was just thinking, I better swim fast, not making any splashes, but I better swim fast. In case we attract something, I'm not going to get it. Anyway, we got to the other side, and it was it was a very tall grass. And again, we started bushwhacking around. We got some paper cuts from the grass. We got to the beach, and then, okay, now we're at the beach. Now we have just to walk back, and we'll be back at the station. So I told them to hurry up because it was about 11:30, and this was the time when they were starting to serve lunch. And we kept on walking, and we hit a point, and we turn in. I see a female jaguar and 3 cubs. Well, not cubs. They were definitely a little bit smaller than the female. There were 3 juvenile jaguars with this mother, and she was digging a turtle's nest, and they were eating the eggs of a turtle nest. And I found that amazing. And lucky enough, as soon as we turned at this point, we were really close to them. This couple of Americans were behind me, and I was trying to tell them to hurry up. They were taking their time just walking on the beach and I guess enjoying it. But they did not know that I had just spotted 4 jaguars. And then 2 of the juveniles saw me and they just went into the grass. The female saw me. She kind of held her ground, waiting until the third one was eating some of the eggs. And at this time, the Americans were just trying to run to get to the point to the turning point so they could see it. Unfortunately, only one of them just got to see the back part of the female. We got really close and we heard 2 splashes on water, which meant that they jumped into the body of water that we just have swum. And one of the guys told me, "Oh, hurry, let's go into the grass and let's try to see them." And I said, "Well, I just heard 2 splashes of water. I don't know if there's one just hidden in the grass. I will stay here. I won't go. But if you want to go into the grass," again, it was a tall grass, "be my guest." And the guy decided not to.
And that's the grass on the other side of the Serena, right in front of the lagoon.
Right. Now, this grass was between. We found out later that this other body of water was the Sirena Lagoon, where the largest of the crocodiles live. And again, I had heard about the lagoon, and I was not willing to risk also getting into the grass, into the tall grass. I heard only 2 splashes in the water, and there were 4 cats. So I was not going to risk it. I was the smallest one. I was 16 years old. These 2 Americans were bigger than I was.
When I was there in 2004, there was a jaguar on the other side over there near the grass, and it was eating a sea turtle, and I could hear the pops,
the crunch,
all the way across the surf, and I could see the eye shine. The next day we went over there, and it was a good 150 yards away, and you could hear it over the waves.
These animals are strong. Your dad has a really good picture of one eating a turtle, and you can see little cuddly animals that you want to just grab the cheeks. No, those are muscles.
So the jaguars love those sea turtles, right? And they look for them on the new moons when they come and lay eggs.
They patrol the beach constantly.
But it's not their main source of food. The peccaries are more.
I think the jaguars are really smart animals. So I think the largest jaguars, those will protect those areas, beach areas with turtles. There was one that we even called the monster. It was a really big jaguar. We will find tracks of that animal on the beach something. So my thinking is that the largest animal protect the easiest source of food. Peccaries, they have tusks and they're more mobile than the turtles. So again, my thought is that smaller jaguars have to deal with the peccaries, but as they grow and they can withhold the best territory, the bigger ones will hold on the beach because it is easier for them to kill a turtle and not get hurt. Whereas if you have to deal with a peccary, you could get hurt.
Okay, so you go on the Serena Trail back to the station at this point.
We end up in the beach. So we kept on walking after looking at the jaguars. We go up walking. By now, we've definitely lost lunch. It was about 12:30. We have to cross the Sirena river mouth, which by luck, it was in the low tide. So the water was not too deep. And then we kept on walking. We got to the airstrip that goes to the Sirena station. And it was probably, again, about 1 p.m. at the time. And then a flock of about 50 macaws I remember thinking this was the most beautiful thing I've seen. The colors of the red, the blue, and the yellow against the sunlit trees, the green and the sunlit trees. That was spectacular for me, even more so than the jaguars. The jaguars were, again, one in a lifetime. I've never been able to see 4 jaguars at the same time again. Unreal. But, and I've seen the macaws again, but those colors just made an imprint in my brain. I just fell in love with the place. We got to the station. It was, just past 1:30 probably, because we stayed there a little bit, just looking at the beautiful sunlit trees, looking at the macaws that were flying from one balsa tree to the other. The macaws, they like to eat the flowers. The flowers have a lot of nectar. So we watched a lot of this and we got to the station. And at the station, we got there and all of a sudden finding ticks in our bodies because again, we have just bushwhacked a lot. And someone came by and told us, oh, you're paying your dues in blood. And I just thought, I don't care. I spent the most amazing morning just looking at these things and I've never been able to see anywhere else. And again, by this time I used to hunt. So I used to travel to different areas of Costa Rica. This was just incredible to be able to see all what we've seen during this morning. This is without me telling you that we saw the 4 species of monkeys that are in Costa Rica. Corcovado is the only park that I know that has the 4 species of monkeys. The spider monkey, the howler monkey, white-faced capuchin, and the squirrel monkey. We got to see all these animals. We got to see tamandua, which is a medium-sized anteater.
Speaking of those, isn't there a story of one crossing the Serena and getting nailed by a crocodile?
Yeah, I was once with a student, and we got to the river mouth. We went to the river mouth of the Sirena because this time now I knew how I could spot bull sharks at the surf. So I said, oh, if we go when the surf is coming in, we might be able to see some shark fins. So we went there looking for bull shark. And when we got to the river mouth, I looked at the other side and I saw one of these anteaters coming, just walking. These anteaters, they have really poor eyesight. And he was just walking, coming out from the woods, sort of coming towards the river. And I told her, oh, look at the anteater. And she said, hey, but look at the crocodile. I did not see the crocodile. And the anteater kept on walking towards the river. It turns out that when the anteater got to the water, there was an explosion. And this was the crocodile that was swimming fast to get to where the anteater was walking to. So they met. And the crocodile just exploded, just grabbed the anteater and just went into the water. Before that, I had not seen the crocodile. And before this, the student had not seen the anteater. And then we saw the crocodile just carrying the anteater upriver. It was being drowned.
How big of a croc was it?
It was over 16 feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a large, it picked up the anteater like it was nothing. Like it was a loaf of bread.
What's the biggest crocodile that you know about being sighted there?
I'll tell you the one I have seen. So we came one night. This is years afterwards with a group of students from Sweden. We used to do night walks on the beach to see whether we can spot sea turtles. Earlier that night, or as soon as we crossed the Sirena River mouth, we started walking and I saw this eye shine and I kept on looking. I said, that must be a jaguar. So I just told the guys, it's a jaguar. Let's move faster. And we closed up and it was a smaller jaguar who was on top of a turtle. Unfortunately, we scared the jaguar. I took pictures of the turtle with the claw marks in the neck and the turtle shell as well. But we, after apologizing to the jaguar and the turtle thanking us profusely, we kept on walking and we got to a point where you could actually reach to the Sirena Lagoon. At the time, I had a couple of canoes there, and my plan was just to jump into the canoes and go at night paddle at night there in the Sirena Lagoon to see the crocodiles. Anyway, there is this bird that it's called paraki that it also gives an eye shine. They're nocturnal birds and they're usually seen in the ground. And I saw this thing that looked like a log, and on top of the log, I saw an eye shine and I said, this got to be a paraki. So I told him, let's get quiet and see whether I can reach close enough that I can grab the paraki. So we started walking, again, slow, but steadily toward what I deemed it was a log. And it turned out that it was not a log. As soon as I got close enough, the whole thing moved. And I was looking at the eye shine of a crocodile that was just in the sand. It must have been about a 6-meter crocodile. That's a 18-foot crocodile. So that was the biggest one I've seen. And I've seen some from the air. Sometimes we used to go out in a small Cessna plane. And I remember seeing one that I thought it was a lot bigger than that one. I would say probably 7 meters, probably 21 foot. But that one I never got to see at eye level.
And the one you saw from the plane was at the mouth of the Serena?
It was at the mouth of the Sirena, yes. I took a picture of it. That's why I remember looking at that picture constantly and trying to figure out how long it was, how long the crocodile was. Because we were not too far up. By the time the plane goes through the river mouth, we're still very, very low. And I was able to kind of judge. Thought it might have been about 7 meters. But I never got to see that animal again. A lot of people told me, a lot of the park guards told me, oh, there's a bigger animal that lives in the Sirena Lagoon, but I never got to see it.
Yeah, I saw one that was probably 16 feet the day after we rafted down the Rio Claro, right in the mouth. Our raft was sinking, and the next day I saw that big croc.
I remember being at the at the Claro River mouth with you. I was not right at the current, and from the river comes this bull shark that is just went by me. It just went into the waves, so I just kind of gauged the size of this animal, and it was a huge animal. I even made a drawing afterwards because that really scared me. It was a really big animal. It's
Was that in 2016 or 2011?
Yeah, no, 2016.
I was there in, I think, around 1991 I was with Charlie Bear, I think, at the mouth of the Serena. And I was waiting out at the point at the mouth and the tide was coming in. And I saw something like a little disturbance come in the wave up towards me. And then with the next wave, it came closer. And then I walked back to the shore and the next wave comes in and I look back. And then when the wave went out, there was a big bull shark that was coming right for me. And then it turned. And when the wave goes out, it got beached. And it was a massive bull shark, a real deep bodied. I mean, probably 8 feet it's probably a 500-pound bull shark. Its mouth was open. Its eyes were, it looked like it was coming for me on that run.
You were 11 years at the time.
Yeah, I was just sitting there and I saw it. I was trying to yell at Charlie, hey, look at this, but he couldn't hear me over the waves. The next wave came in and it took it back out.
Yeah. There are massive sharks, and I hear people saying that the largest bull sharks are about 9 feet long, but no, I've seen larger sharks. I remember one time being also at the Sirena River mouth. I saw this log coming from the river towards the ocean. It was really close, so I could really gauge that log was about 10 meters. And I kept on looking at this shark out in the surf. It was just out there. It was not getting any close. It was just out there. And after probably half an hour, I saw this log and I was seeing the fin of the shark, and the log almost hit the shark on the waves. And I remember seeing the dorsal fin. I remember seeing the tail fins. And I could judge that the size of the shark was the half of the size of that log that I just saw. So I believe they're bull sharks about 5 meters long there.
No, I agree. I've seen sharks like that. Easily 15 feet coming in. Every day you'll see an 8 to 10 foot shark, and then I've seen 15 footers, and I don't know what species they are. I don't know if tiger sharks come in there, but over the years I've seen many sharks that big. Maybe tiger sharks come in, but one day I saw a shark that dwarfed the 15 footer. It had a 4-foot dorsal fin, and it stayed out in the surf. I realized it must be about a 20-foot hammerhead.
Yeah, they are.
Because the hammerheads have these long. Its fin was like the hammerhead fin, and it was a monster.
The thing with the sharks out at the Sirena River mouth is that most of the sharks don't tolerate fresh water. There's a lot of sharks. There are different species of sharks that I've seen at Sirena. I've seen lemon sharks. I've seen bull sharks. I've seen very few tiger sharks, but I've seen tiger sharks. I've seen hammerheads. And I remember Paulino also fishing. Paulino's a park guard. And I remember him fishing a big brown shark as well. I think it was a silky. But yeah, the sharks there are just, the diversity is high because there's still a lot of food. This park really also protects the marine or the coastal, not marine, but the coastal part. I've never seen healthy populations of fish species as I see them in Sirena. And of course, if you have all the basic species, you also have the predatory species up there.
So what about, let's get to some of the biodiversity. What makes Corcovado the crown jewel of the Costa Rican national parks?
Charismatic megafauna is the first thing I'm gonna mention, because this is what people would like to see. I mean, we got both species of the peccaries, the javelina, and you got the white-lipped peccary. You got tapirs, which are animals that can grow up to be 350 kilos. For a herbivore, they're big. You got brocket deer. You also have the cats. You also have the jaguars, which are. This is one of the fewer places where you're bound to, or it's easier to see a cat.
5 species, right?
Yes, you got the jaguar, you got the pumas, you got ocelots, you got margays, and you got the jaguarundis. Again, you got the anteaters are common, and the people like to see monkeys. So there's also monkeys. The 4 species of monkeys are there. Sloths are there. There used to be harpy eagles there. Hopefully there still are. With Charlie, we found a harpy eagle's nest right by the lookout in the big ceiba tree. Also, diurnal frogs, like the poison dart frogs, granulated poison dart frog, which is red and green. Again, it's something that you see quite often. The bird fauna is high. A lot of macaws, especially, going back and forth in the balsa trees.
This is a big haven for macaws, right?
Yeah, macaws were heavily poached also for the pet trade. The largest population of macaws was in Corcovado. The second one was in Carrara, but they're now rebounding almost everywhere because a lot of that poaching, the pet trade has stopped. So they're rebounding. Now you can see them not only in Corcovado, but outside the park. There's a place that I visit a lot, Rancho Quemao. There's a really big, healthy population there. And nowadays, even the peccaries and the tapirs are going into Rancho Quemao.
So that's the megafauna is what tourists, anybody come in there for a few days is likely to see, if they walk around, they'll see monkeys, they might see a tapir.
Exactly.
Maybe some peccaries.
Yeah.
They'll see the birds.
And they would see a lot more things. They would see, again, a lot in the insect world. Most of us who are a little bit more specialized in insects will also be in awe because we will see the different swallowtails, which are not common. And we will see the long wings and we will see a different array of butterflies that you cannot see anywhere, or insect like the harlequin beetle, which is a longhorn insect who has really long forearms. The first 2 pair of legs are, sometimes the male will be more than a foot. In females, it's a lot smaller. But
you're also likely to see maybe some mustelids and rodents.
Yes, very common in Corcovado. The agouti, which is our second biggest rodent. If you go out at night, you'll see our biggest rodent, which is the tepescuintle or paca. This animal is heavily poached anywhere else in Costa Rica for its meat, but you can see them in Corcovado if you're able to walk at night. And the weasel family, the mustelids, you get to see the tyra, which is a meter-long weasel, black weasel. They're always grumpy. Sometimes, for the most part, they travel in groups, but sometimes you'll find the single ones. Can you imagine a meter-long weasel with an attitude? That's what a tyra looks. There's also in the Procyon family where the raccoons are. There's the coatis. The coatis are rather large mammals, and they have their tails sticking up. It's sort of like a flag. They are in groups, so it's sort of a way of communicating where in the group are they. So the groups are mostly composed by females, and the juveniles will be constantly looking up to see where the tails are, so where they can have to follow the group, the bigger females.
The coatis and tyras you often see down by the beach.
Nowadays, you see them everywhere. The tyras, it's more easy to find them with the help of the monkeys. When the monkeys see a ground predator, they give an alarm. And that's how I've been able to get good footage of the tyras. I just start walking fast and quietly and with my eyes peeled.
Do the monkeys have a different call for a tyra versus a jaguar or mountain lion? Or
no, they for the ground animals, they do have a one specific call, which is about like a bark. The other thing is that the station in Sirena in Corcoval has one of the biggest troops of spider monkeys. A researcher there, she counted that the group was about 160 animals, which they're not always in one big group. No tree or any source of food can hold that many animals, but they subdivide in smaller groups. But the members of this subgroups would divide, and also they're really a good source of food for the predators. Again, I've seen the tyras and I've seen the pumas go after the spider monkeys.
And there's some river otters too, right?
Strangely enough, we got to see one really, really big. Usually the river otter doesn't grow past 4 feet. There's one individual there that it is more than 6 feet. And it's not one of those South American river otters that someone came and drew in. No, it's just a gigantic version of the otter. Again, there's a lot of food there. The rivers luckily, there's still a lot of fish in those rivers.
And then what about snakes?
Snakes, we have all sorts of snakes in Corcoval. From the most feared ones, the bushmaster from the Osa Peninsula. It's an endemic species. We also have the furtherlances. They grow to be quite big there. We have a lot of non-venomous ones, corais. I think they call it indigo, but the one here, they're not black. They are brown. Only the tail is black, and they grow to be maybe 9 feet. And this will prey on venomous snakes. We also have the sopilota, the clelia. This is a snake that feeds also on other snakes. Main predator for the furtherlands, and the furtherlands is the one that causes more accidents in Costa Rica. We also have green vine snakes, and we have the blunt-headed snakes, and we have the cat-eyed snakes that I see a lot because of my research with red-eyed tree frogs. These snakes like to eat the eggs of the red-eyed tree frogs. One night I was able to count about 32 of these snakes in one of the little ponds right next to the airstrip.
And then you've seen big boa constrictor.
We first found it because some of the males of the coatis, they usually are by themselves. And some of these males go and patrol close to the station. They were disappearing. And we went looking for them. And it turns out that I saw something that I thought it was a log. Also, I think I got to be more careful about the logs. But this one was shiny. So I was walking and I said, it's strange to see a shiny log. So I went back and I just got closer, and it just turned out to be a very huge boa constrictor. This is a big boa constrictor that I decided that I would not catch it because this boa was so big that it was able to take me and I would be boa food. And I said, nope, I'm going to leave that one alone.
Yeah, that one looked more like a anaconda or something. That thing is huge.
That thing is huge. But you also have the small boas. There's a really difficult boa to see, which is called a Ungaleophis, Panamanian dwarf boa. And we found one in the roof of the. I've seen only two in Corcoval. One in the roof of the lab at the station, and the other one I saw it at the where the boats beach in the Naranjo Trail. There's some beautiful reptiles there. We also have the basilisk lizard that they're able to run on top of the water. We have a lot of the skinks. I also found a monkey tail lizard at Corcoval, which I've never seen before. And these monkey tail lizards, they live in a canopy. And it's just a long tail that they just curl around. It's not prehensile, but sure looks like they can tie themselves up. And they are really slow lizards. They're the type that you call the sit and wait. They just wait until the prey comes in front of them so they can grab it. and they don't move too fast, so they don't attract the attention of hawks or something like that. There's a lot of hawks, big hawks, from the harpy eagle. The only other time that I've seen monkeys give another different alarm than the ground alarm was when a ornate hawk eagle tried to grab one of these monkeys. They gave a high pitch call, and then all the monkeys just jumped into the ground. This was at the trail that goes to the lookout. And we know of the black and white hawk eagle. We know about the white hawks. There's a lot of black hawks in Sirena, all the way to the tiny hawks. You got the peregrine falcon, you got the bat falcons, which are beautiful to see at the beach at dusk. Bats will go flying all the way around, and you would see when they chase a bat, the falcon would just go and do a loop and just get the bat from the back where they don't have the sonar going. It's really, really impressive.
I've seen that here too with the peregrine falcons and the Mexican free-tailed bats that live under the Congress Bridge in Austin. There are falcons that'll take them.
Nice.
What about some of the endemic species there, right? So the bushmaster, and then there's some eyelash viper.
Well, people are looking into. They're starting to look more into the diversity of the Osa Peninsula, and they have found that there is a lot of speciation going on. So yes, they call now the eyelash pit viper. There's now they call it something else, the supraciliaris. There's the hognose pit viper.
Explain why there would be differentiation at the Osa.
So Costa Rica have a central mountain range that divides the Atlantic side and the Pacific side. The Osa is in the Pacific side. One of the reasons why it has isolated a little bit forest-wise, the Pacific of Costa Rica, from the central Pacific north, it changes the forest type to dry forest. It's a different ecosystem. And then if you get to Panama, after the Panama border, also it changes a lot. The South Pacific of Costa Rica is a little bit different. More so into the peninsula. The peninsula has a bottleneck, if you want to call it that, where if things go through, it's easier for them to then spread into the rest of the peninsula. But that bottleneck, there's a bottleneck there that it's also, if you wish, it's a little bit blocked by a mountain range of the Rancho Quemado hillside. Strangely enough, this only gets to be about 480 meters above sea level, but there is another different type of forest, an ecotone, the cloud forest, which not all the animals can tolerate, especially the small, more frail animals, for example, frogs, insects. And then also close to the bottleneck, we also have the Sierpe mangrove swamp. That even narrows a lot more that bottleneck. And the mangrove swamp, even though there's trees, there's a lot of salt. So again, it's a difficult area for plants to grow. If there's not enough plants, a lot of the insects will not go. It's very difficult for the amphibians, which of course they can't tolerate salt. So again, that bottleneck does make a really interesting barrier. So whatever is in, or whatever it got in before, I guess, the last ice age, they got isolated. So in my eyes, the Osa Peninsula is just like an island that is still connected to the continent, but it has a lid on it. And again, there is a speciation because there's isolation, just like an island effect. So people have looked into the bushmaster, people have looked into the eyelash pit viper, and they have looked into the hognose pit viper, and they have found that they are different species. So there is speciation going on. I am sure that if we start looking into the bird community, we also would find this. We also, for example, the manakins. There is a orange-breasted manakin in the Osa Peninsula, only there. Maybe it has just left, since it's a bird that can fly, and it have left now, but I'm sure the origin is the Osa Peninsula. There's an aracari, there's actually two aracaris, which is a small type of toucan, one in the Caribbean side of Costa Rica, its bill is black and white, and very similar to the one in the Osa Peninsula. But the one in the Osa Peninsula, the bill is red and yellow. It's called a fiery bill or a carry. And again, I've looked into snakes, and the snakes are very different. Some of the snail eaters, they look, even though they're the same species, they look entirely the same. And even though they're still the same species, they're just starting on its way of the speciation. It's my take. They're starting to diverge, and again, only because the Osa Peninsula is sort of an island still connected to to land. Actually, your father was the first to look at this thing with the Heliconius pachinus. He found out that it's a different race of Heliconius sino from the Atlantic side of Costa Rica. The mountain range came up, it divided, isolated in the Osa. I'm sure he hasn't looked exactly where it has originated from, but it's got to be that area.
How different do their wing patterns look?
Oh, totally. Yeah. The one in Pachinus is the forewing is black with 2 yellow stripes, and Sydno, the wing is black with a really big white blotch, not line. It's a very big white patch. So they are very, very different. But it's turns out that the one in the Pacific, it's again in the verge of they're speciating. Only it's not time. We caught it in a time where they're still not divided enough to be considered a new species, but they're heading that way. They're not having contact back with the ones in the Atlantic side, so many of the others. So it is really interesting. This is a evolution in the making.
Describe the difference between the Pacific and Atlantic side Bushmaster.
So the Bushmaster in the Osa, for one, physically, they have a black head. So it's also called the black-headed Bushmaster. The tan color in the one in the Osa is also a lot brighter than the one in the Caribbean side. The venom is very different also. That's one of the main differences, how they were able to tell them apart. Also, in behavior-wise, the one in the Osa Peninsula is very aggressive. This animal will attack without provocation. It will raise its head above the ground and come toward whoever it wants to be aggressive to. It is very aggressive.
One of those killed a horse one time, right?
Well, there's a story of a Costa Rican biologist who was there. She was working in Sirena, and then she was living with some of the park guards to another station, and they took a horse. This student decided that she wanted one of the easiest going mares, and she took it, and while going out in the park, apparently the horse got bitten by one of these snakes, and really quickly the horse started acting up, and then it eventually fell down and it died. And the common name of that snake in Costa Rica is Matabuey, which means ox killer. And in this case, it killed a horse.
Which is significant because the normal protocol, right, is to inject the horse with the snake venom to get the antivenom, because a horse usually can handle a poisonous snake, no problem. It has an immune reaction. Yes. That's how they make the antivenom, right?
Yes, exactly. The problem, or the way they make it, is they inject really small doses. The problem with the Bushmaster is that it is the largest pit viper in the world. Males get to be up to 4 meters, that's 16 feet. So the sheer quantity of venom is just a lot. It might not be as powerful as a coral snake, but it is just a sheer quantity that. And we've encountered dead tapirs, and by the swelling, we think it's either really big terciopelo or a big Bushmaster.
And then describe the trees a little bit. The forest is more like a South American jungle.
So the soil, which is what feed the trees, the newer soil, they have to have bedrock. And most of the tropical rainforests don't have much bedrock. And what you have is soils that are clay soils with a lot of iron, and the iron just grabs onto the magnesium. And magnesium is something that the plants really need to be able to grow. But there are some of these areas that had a really good, healthy bedrock, especially by San Pedrillo area. There's a plateau called there Llorona. The plant species there has a newer soil, a richer soil, and trees there, they tend to grow a lot taller. So if the canopy in a regular place is probably about 15 meters above the ground, in this place it would be probably 20 more meters above the ground, 70 meters. And that's, so there are trees like the vaco trees, the blossomum trees there that grow a lot taller. And this gives you a sense like you're in a cathedral. Alvin Gentry called this a cathedral type forest that he would find in Chocó, Colombia, and then again only in the Llorona Plateau. So that is also unique. And again, if you're used to going into a forest and seeing the canopy at a certain level, you go to these other forests and you feel that you're dwarfed.
And one thing that's interesting is how this whole place almost wiped off the map pretty early.
Yeah. So the reason was because of the politics in Costa Rica. The politics in the 1960s saw that any land not being used for production of in agriculture or cattle or any other human development was wasteland. So they tried to give the Osa Peninsula to anyone who would be willing to work it or make a profit out of it.
So what are the conservation problems on the Osa? So I know in like the 80s you had the gold mining, and then more recently it's poaching.
In the beginning, one of the bigger problems was that people were not wanting to give their land for the national park. So Costa Rica thought of any land that was not productive in terms of cattle or agriculture or city, wasteland. So the government wanted to give the Osa Peninsula to anyone who was willing to work. The first ones they tried to give it was to the Standard Fruit Company, which was a banana company in Costa Rica. And they came and they looked into the land and they say, well, there's this hills and it's going to be very difficult for the train. We have also a lot of rocks and it's quite rocky. It's very difficult. So they rather kept expanding northwards towards Sierpe, towards the central Pacific part of Costa Rica. But they thought, okay, the government gave us this land. Then the government tried to give it to Osa Productos Forestales, which was an American who wanted to do one of the first eco-friendly management harvesting of forest. He thought that if they gave him the whole peninsula, he will divide it in 40 tracts and log one of these tracts every year. And that would give him 40 years time to go to circle around to the first tract he logged and harvested again. But the problem was that this guy came on looking for mahogany, and mahogany is not existent in the Pacific of Costa Rica. There's a little bit in the Atlantic side, but not in the Pacific. So he had these hardwoods, these beautiful woods, but back in the 60s and 70s, people did not know what they were.
Like the Purple Heart?
The Purple Heart is one of them. The Purple Heart is a very hard tree. The color purple is actually that the tree is sucking up a lot of the iron into the wood. And that's why it's so heavy. When you cut one of these trees, it is brown as any other wood, but it oxidizes in the presence of air. And then this wood turns out to be purple. Again, this is one of the valuable woods. Cristobal is it also does the same thing. It absorbs a lot of the iron. The Cristobals in the Osa Peninsula tend to be a lot more reddish wood, very hard. Any of these two trees, when the wood is dry, it won't float. That's how hard they are. But back then, they didn't know about these woods. And the guy who was running Osa Productos Forestales, he decided to bring biologists from the university so they can look into the area and tell them what the tree species were. It was in his interest, but the biologists who came there saw how impressive that is in terms of diversity, how lush and diverse it was. And they thought that it was worth protecting. On the other side, there was also the ITCO, that is the Instituto de Tierras y Colonización, the Institute of Land and Colonization back then. So that was giving land to whoever wanted to farm it. So homesteaders would come there and claim a piece of land and say it's theirs, and with the protection or having the ITCO backing them up. So now we have four players on the land. The government gave the land to these four parties. So one, again, the banana company, the other one, Osa Productos Forestales. Well, the biologists were not given the land, but they were really interested in the land, and the homesteaders. At one point, the one who came up with some sort of legal paper that the government said that it was theirs was the banana company. The banana company still was not interested in working this land. So they gave, when one of their general managers retired, they gave him as part of the golden parachute for his retirement. They gave him that land. He did not do anything, but at one point when he passed away, his widow had this and she was willing to sell it. The story goes that the biologists, they got a hold of the Nature Conservancy in Texas. And the Nature Conservancy in Texas, they sold some land there and had enough money to help pay for Corcovado National Park. As it goes, the woman was going to sell the peninsula to whoever came in first, the biologist or the guy from Osa Productos Forestales. And the story goes that the guy had a flat, and this made possible that the biologist got there first, purchasing the only legal deed for the land. And that's how Corcovado started to happen.
How big was that tract of land?
It was more than half of the Osa Peninsula.
Wow. And that was his golden parachute? Wow.
That was his golden parachute.
He must have been pretty big in the company.
Well, again, it was land that people did not want that land. I mean, the banana company didn't want it because it was more difficult for them. It was easier for them just to go to the flatlands along the Pacific coast of Costa Rica, not having to go through mountains because they needed their train to be hauling the banana all the way back to Golfito and being exported there.
So I remember in the 80s, the big problem was the gold mining stuff that was happening up in the Rio Claro, and there were park guards going up there. Do you know what the problem was with that? I mean, I remember creating a lot of silt in the river. Like, how was it destructive? Were they poaching also, or is it mainly just that it was disrupting the river?
What was happening was that the people were doing a lot of destruction, yes, and they started to use mercury as well to get the gold. So they were also polluting the river with heavy metals. But not only that, but also, yes, since they could not carry much of their supplies with, so they did a lot of the poaching inside the park. And this was not only one or two people who were just gold mining there. At one point there was thought there was about 700 people there in the river just with their shovels and shoveling down and trying to fish the gold out of the riverbeds. This is an alluvial gold, which means that there's not a gold, what do I call it, streak, that you would find a lot of gold. So this gold has been broken, has been washed. So it's a little nuggets what you find. So in search of these little nuggets, yes, you have to be digging and carving a lot more.
I remember they had some pretty big patrols of pretty mean-looking park guards that were not the normal station guys. But a few times I was on trails by myself, and about 15 guys walked by me carrying big rifles.
So one of the problems was that since this was very remote, Corcovado National Park was very remote, a lot of the people who were fleeing the authorities from San Jose, they just went to the Osa Peninsula. A lot of these people were murderers. So these were people fleeing the authorities and people trying to make a living out for themselves. Something that appealed to them was that they did not have any bosses. They didn't have any job, regular job. Whatever they gained was whatever they did for themselves. So that was very appealing also for them. There was a lot of murders in the early days of the gold mining in the Ozark Peninsula between gold miners.
And there was that recent deal where a kid hired a guide to go in there maybe 5 years ago and disappeared, and it turned out that the
gold miner is the prime suspect. Yes. Unfortunately, this is not new. Again, the real father of the national park system, he was a Swedish that came to Costa Rica, and he started living in the Nicoya Peninsula on the very tip, a place called Cabo Blanco. He had no sons to inherit this land that he purchased. And then he decided that he should contact some people and try to make his land of a national park. This was in the 60s. This guy was very involved with the people who actually started making the national parks. And he was actually involved in also trying to figure out if Corcovado proposed it as a national park. So he went there and hired one of these gold miners. And it turns out that one of these gold miners also murdered him for his binoculars and camera.
Wow. And so more recently, it's poaching. That's the problem, right?
Yeah, it's again, it's both the poaching, because again, a lot of the people there who turned into tourism to as a mean of making a living, and with the COVID just shutting down tourism, they have looked back into trying to sustain their families with bushmeat. With gold mining as well. If there's something that still is a problem, is gold mining, because the price of gold is still going up.
And so what have you been involved with regarding the poaching?
A lot of what happened in the past was people from towns surrounding the peninsula were coming into the park to do their poaching there. At one point, it stopped a little bit because we had patrols. There was a good administration that was doing whatever possible to stop. They were supporting the patrols. Your dad and I started an organization to try to help also these patrols, to try to bring resources, call it having backpacks, having GPSs, having even sometimes we gave them even cameras so they can just take evidence of from what they found in their patrols. At one point, we were even having to supply the bullets because the government, they were not supporting them. Different administrations think that they can do the protecting in one way or the other. The latest administrations think that they can do more of the administration having tourism. If there's tourism, they say there's not going to be poaching, which is not true. So lately, I got involved with one of the towns that they have been one of the biggest problems in poaching, which is Rancho Quemado. Rancho Quemado had, for as long as I can remember, been the main poachers of the peccaries in Corcovado National Park. But within the town, there started a movement. Two of the largest families there just changed their ways, and they saw that it's better to protect than to keep killing. So they started protecting the peccaries. They have no training as patrol people, but they know that if they are with the peccaries, their fellow townspeople will not go and kill the peccaries. Again, because they can just say, okay, I'm a witness and I'm going to tell them to the authorities and you're going to go to jail. So it's interesting because it's based on respect. A lot of the people who are there with the peccaries protecting are, again, they used to be poachers, but they are the people, the older people or the older families in those towns. And people respect them. When they see that there's people taking care of the peccaries or watching after the peccaries, they won't poach. And it has really made a difference. There are also people coming from other towns around the peninsula to poach in that area. And they're stopped. I mean, these people now, they're already organized. I've helped them to organize themselves. And they are doing the job that the authorities should be doing. They're doing it better. And just because, again, the town is so small, that's something that helps them. someone just says, oh, there's a weird car that stopped there and they're coming with dogs. So people will organize and will go out and look for the peccaries, and then they will start looking for the presumable poachers. And if they find them, they call the authorities and they stop them. It has worked. Unfortunately, they also have happened that they hear the a gunshot and they go and look and they find the dead peccary. But to me, it is another way to protect, to do the conservation. Turns out that the government, with this COVID and the lack of resources that our country has, they declared at one point that they have no resources to do the protection. So they wouldn't do it. They made a letter and it was published. And luckily enough, these people in Rancho Quemal are above this other the people who are supposed to be the government who is protecting them. They're above them. They're really doing the protection.
And so, mention where Rancho Quemado is. Isn't it up near the bottleneck?
Yes, it's inside the peninsula, and it's crouched against the mountains of that bottleneck that I was telling you about. The area has one of the few cloud forests on the peninsula. Again, it gets to almost 500 meters above sea level. It is very, very interesting. It's blocked by those mountains.
Do they take tapirs also? Is it just peccaries?
Well, again, most of the things that they do, and they're convincing other people to do, is not to kill. And for one thing, they're trying to say, oh, the tapir meat is not good. I mean, it tastes like horse meat. They belong to the same family, the horse, the tapir, and the rhinoceros. But they are saying that, no, it's not worth to kill a tapir. It's just too heavy. You're not going to be able to take as much meat. And then again, it's not very good meat. So for one, they're convincing people not to go after some of the animals they used to kill. So they're getting into the people's mind. And again, since they're in a town, they're constantly talking to each other. And by the word of mouth, they are affecting their peers.
So right now, what needs to be done?
Right now, again, the problem is not ended. We want to expand the idea of Rancho Quemal as a monitoring group. We have to call themselves, or they call themselves, a monitoring group. They cannot call themselves conservation group, because the protection of the wildlife by law, it has to be done only by the state. So they call themselves a monitoring group. And this monitoring group, we want to do it in other towns. Bayachal is another town that they see how successful they are, and that people are coming to see what they do. So they can even see that model of Rancho Quemal as a tourism / business kind of way to help. So if they protect, they are, again, receiving a lot more tourism. So right now they're trying to copy what Rancho Quemal is doing. So one of the things that we're doing is, yes, trying to bring other towns of the peninsula to do the same thing. The other thing that we are in dire need right now is for some collars. So we know exactly what are the trails that the peccaries are using. Some of some of the herds are coming from the national park. To Rancho Quemal. But we're not sure which trails are they using, what is worth using the few resources they have, where to protect. And we're guessing with about 10 radar collars, satellite radar collars, we're going to be able to find these routes. Also, one of the things that, as a biologist, I know it's going on, is the park has outgrown. A lot of the park was, when it was established, it was farms. And now it's a very old secondary forest. It looks almost like a primary forest. And there has to be some management done, because our biggest herbivore is probably 3-4 feet from the ground. So if all this vegetation that they need is just covered by the trees, this vegetation will disappear. So we need to be able to manage some areas, to be able to do successional plots, I would guess hectares, enough for animals to stay inside the park. So they're moving out because are not finding enough resources, food resources. So they're going out in areas where there's this secondary forest, where there's this bushes.
So in other words, you do need some more clearing.
Yes, but we have to be very careful because the loggers would be very happily willing to clear all the hardwoods of the Corcovado. And also we have to make sure in which areas would be able to grow what kind of plants that would be usable for the herbivores. You cannot grow palm because palm has very little nutrients, but if they grow melastomes and other plants that are used by insects and are used by so many other animals, you'll have all the food chain going on. And if you have all that surrounded by a pristine forest, like in Corcovado, like in the Sirena was in the past, then you're going to find an exceptional place. I think Sirena has reached a carrying capacity for a lot of the big mammals. I think the populations of tapirs and again, we see the tapirs now going out of Corcovado. We see the peccaries move out of Corcovado, and behind them are the carnivores. So Corcovado is going to turn out to be just like any other forest in the world, or any other rainforest in the world, if you live it as is, doing absolutely nothing. But if you want to keep the high diversity, population numbers high, and the diversity high, you have to manage the area. If you want to keep Corcovado as a jewel of the national park system and as a unique place in the world, there has to be some management done, and the authorities are not doing such thing.
I know up in Vancouver Island, British Columbia, there were originally a lot of clearings and a high deer population, so lots of herbivores and also a lot of mountain lions. And then they let all that grow up, and the deer population went down, and then it ended up being the major center for mountain lion attacks because the mountain lions ran out of food and they started attacking people.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about these things, and a lot of the politicians, they think that conservation is doing nothing, or conservation is just preventing from killing. And no, unfortunately, there is management. We are the animals that have a brain and have to use it. If we want to have things lasting a little bit longer, we have to manage them.
Yeah, like how much do these radio collars cost?
We're just starting to look into this. This will have to be purchased in the United States. But I'm guessing they will go around $3,500 per collar.
And how many do you need?
We need about 10 in the perfect world.
And you haven't radio collared peccaries before, right? I mean, some people have radio collared the tapirs and jaguars.
No, but they have also, people have put radio collars on peccaries. And right now there's a biologist from Peru that she has done it in Peru, and she is willing to lend her expertise so we can put collars into these animals. We're really interested in knowing their routes in order to be able to protect them.
Are the radio collars dangerous for the animal?
No, with the experience that we have had with the tapirs, as long as people keep on doing their job and tracking the animals and looking at the animals, it shouldn't be a problem. The radio collar, they have a area. They don't fit tight. That's what I want to say. They don't fit tight, so the animals should be able to eat normally. Every so often, they have to be readjusted or just checked upon to see that it's not rubbing into the animal, that it's not creating any lesions. But like everything, this is just to be on top of things and not just put them and forget about them.
Clearly, the tourist didn't want to see an animal with a radio collar on it, but you got to weigh against not seeing the animal at all.
Yeah. The good thing about the peccaries is that there are so many that you would find the few with a collar and a lot more without collars. So again, this radio collar is giving us at least their paths will help us figure out even that part of behavior, which would be important for their conservation.
And so then what are some of the other areas where you would potentially use funds? Would it be kind of grassroots campaigns, education,
the best impact that we can do for wildlife would be to go to these other villages. So again, just show them the example that Rancho Quemao has had. No, it's not only protecting. Look, there's also tourism involved here. People want to come and see what you guys are doing. So that would be very effective in terms of conservation. If we are able to turn these towns into conservationists, we are not only protecting Corcovado, but Corcovado would be the core, but we'll also be expanding the protection area. Again, not because of a man-made boundary, but because of a mentality of certain townspeople. And this helps because these towns are still small. So if you set it up right now, hopefully if the town grows bigger, the mentality will remain.
But you do need some funds for just basic supplies for the patrols, right? I mean, in terms of GPSs and shelters, camping equipment.
Personally, I supplied with cameras, with flashlights, with even hammocks, because sometimes these people have to follow them 24/7 because there's the threat of poachers. So people stay out there. I supply them with hammocks, backpacks, water bottles, even shoe wear, food. But a lot is needed. For example, there is a meeting right now. We're in such a position that we're not able to bring the people who want to learn about this conservation to a meeting that we were planning to do. The resources are so low right now that we can't even move people so they can again learn.
It's useful to get some people from one town to go talk to people from the other town, so you need to hire a bus.
Exactly.
Maybe pay for meals or things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, and to be able to show again, in my case, I live in San Jose and I have to go to the Osa Peninsula, which is 400 kilometers away. And to be able to get there, to stay there. Well, right now we have somewhere to stay, thanks to your dad who donated a house. And we have where to stay. But again, it's just to move things from one place to the other, it takes resources. And right now we don't have.
So explain what my dad funded and how you use that money.
The first thing that your dad wanted to do is help rebuild the lab at Sirena in the park. Unfortunately, the politics inside the park make it very difficult. And we started looking for where we can make positive effect. So I looked again, and we found Rancho Quemao. And at Rancho Quemao, there was a need of a place, yes, where people have meetings, where we could bring veterinarians that were willing to help with the peccaries, or biologists who were willing to help in one way or the other, or even that they had a research project going, they needed a place where to stay. Your dad supplied the funds to build a house. So right now we have a place where people can, we just finished it. But so far, veterinarians have visited it when some of the peckers were hacked with machetes. So there was no gunshot. The poachers didn't want a shotgun or a gun firing sound to alert people. So they started hacking them with machetes. Not all the peccaries that they hit with a machete were killed. The people from the monitoring group saw these machete hacks on on the peccaries. So we contacted some veterinarians to help us patch up these wounded peccaries, and that happened. Luckily, we have that house to house in the veterinarians. Also, with the some biologists coming in to teach them how to monitor birds. So the people from Rancho Quemao learned how to do that. They were able to house these people. People from Bahia Chal also that are coming to learn from the people from Rancho Quemao and see what they're doing. They come and they stay there for a weekend while they look. So the place has really worked. The place that your dad funded.
So who built the shelter?
The monitoring group of Rancho Quemado. So I told them that, again, your dad and I had the idea of a building that would help them. So I asked them, is there a place that you guys have that we can build this? And they said yes. And I asked them, do you have someone who would be willing to do the construction? And it says, yes, people here work in construction, a lot of the people in the monitoring group. So these people were involved in the construction.
So you're using the local grassroots campaign to do the buildings, and you're not involving expensive overhead and contractors. So you're getting a lot of bang for buck.
Exactly.
So if somebody donates to you, their money is going a long way.
From the 2000s, when we started a group in Sirena, we started practicing the funding bottom up, that we fund exactly what we need first. Down in again, back then was the patrol groups. We funded them. We didn't fund politicians, and from there skimming down to the little things that would get to the bottom. So we pretty much get a donation. We purchase what they needed, and there's no overhead.
How much did it cost to build that house?
The first part costed $9,000. Right next to that house, they had a bathroom and a shower, but they were in problems. So we fixed the ones existing. We built another shower and another bathroom. We've done a lot more in terms of the house itself. So right now we spent the $12,000 that were donated by your dad.
So maybe a good goal would be to have initially a couple more spots like that in a couple of other villages and different locations around the park, plus 10 radio callers. So
exactly
about $57,000 would kind of kickstart it. That would be money going toward a very
conservation
noble cause on the Osa Peninsula, which is one of the most biodiverse regions in the entire world. And in terms of how much conservation you're getting for your buck, it probably is better than anything you could donate to.
And again, I believe that there's this is as difficult as it seems. I think it is a new idea for conservation. I mean, this drive the town, make a town, do the conservation because of their own interest, of their own wealth. They're self-motivated. And I think that's unique. That is a way of doing it. The government, Costa Rican government claims themselves that they do it, but every political term, every 4 years, they come with another idea or politician that is not too in love with the national parks. But if a town is affected positively with tourism, then they are doing a better conservation effort, I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the mentality has changed over time, because originally the people settling that area had no conservation interest because they were just in the middle of this vast wilderness. They were more worried about just surviving and building a life there. And then over time,
exactly,
as the ecotourism industry was built up, the people started seeing that it was in their interest to have these people with money coming through, and the researchers, but also the ecotourists. And it was a big attraction for Costa Rica and for the national parks. And so the attitude, there's kind of a momentum there, and you want to keep that momentum going and make it stronger. And it's been a really slow process. I mean, you look at the whole evolution of it, like it's kind of been, it's just taken a while for attitudes to change, but they're finally at a point where people are caring about it. The best way to make an impact is right there at the local level, the people that live there.
Exactly.
You don't want them to flip in their mentality. You want to keep that momentum going.
Exactly.
And I think COVID probably reminded the people there that the tourism is important, the conservation is important.
Exactly. It is. Things change a lot. And it's remarkable to see this town that used to be the headache of any conservationist because of the amount of poaching that there was, to be now leading in the terms of conservation.
It's an interesting thing. There's a situation where there's kind of a limit on the amount the parks can charge or something to where they're kind of subsidizing some of the tourism, correct? Where the people coming in aren't really, and they don't know it, but they're really not often paying enough to the park, and it's kind of being subsidized by the government. So donations are important.
Unfortunately, that is true. Unfortunately, again, as I tell you, some of the governments that come along are not that great on conservation, or they have other agendas. And sometimes the tourists will believe that the money that they bring will stay within the park. But no, by law, the money that it's paid to as an entrance fee to a national park goes to the state for them to use it in whatever they deem more important. And it's not that they go to a pot where it's going to be used for national parks. No, even a donation that you do in the national park, it goes back to the one pot of the state. So they will do with that money whatever they want. So at this moment, even the state is a parasite to the national parks. They do pay the wages of the park personnel, and they do pay for whatever it's brought by or brought to the administrations. But in most cases, administrations are very expensive. They are, and in the national parks, it's the same way as well. The administrations are taking more of the resources that should go down to the field, but they have no interest in doing it right. Now, we came with an idea of releasing the non-essential services of a national park to a possible concession. And our idea was that concession was going to be helping, be bringing some extra money for the national parks so they can, again, pay for hopefully anything that the park needs or even the park guards' food. But no, it turned out that it was mismanaged, and now it's another parasite of the system. The money being created is leaving the park.
So generally, when people come into the country, I mean, the reason it has created the positive attitudes is that it attracts tourists to the country in general, and they're spending money in the hotels or just buying things along the way. So it does create a kind of ecotourism industry. And that's what's attractive, but it would be nice that people visiting actually donate to particular organizations or people that are actually active in conservation. It's kind of like tipping your bartender,
right? Because
right? The park and the wildlife is the bartender, and they don't get much from you visiting the bar unless you tip them.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it used to be some other way but unfortunately, some politicians changed this by law. So again, there's just more parasites going into the national park system. And those of us who have conservation in our hearts are trying to do whatever we can to protect nature.
So for somebody that's never experienced Corcovado, how would they get down there? What's the protocol?
Right now, what they have to do is they have to call the main administration of the Osa Conservation Area. You can also visit them on the web. I think they do have a web. And everything is done by either by phone or by email. You have to make reservations usually a month before. When you get they'll ask you when is the time, when you want your reservations for, and they'll tell you that you also have to hire a guide. You cannot go by yourself because, again, some people have gotten lost and then they demand more of the resources of park guards, and there's very few park guards on a station.
And are the guides people that live in these local towns?
Yes, they're usually locals. They had to receive some training. They have to have certain knowledge, and they will help doing the reservations. The reservations entitle you have to pay your entrance fee directly in a bank. So you can do that you will have to do that before you go into the park. So they'll give you, if you contact them by email, they'll give you the accounts. They'll ask, again, they'll They'll tell you, okay, for so many days that you want to go in, it's about $10 per day for a foreigner, and they will tell you that you cannot bring in meals, so you support the local concession, and then that local concession, you have to call them separately to make reservations for food and a bunk bed if you want. And they'll tell you the availability, and they'll tell you their prices for these things. And all these things have to be done prior to the visit to the park. Otherwise, they'll not let you go in. People will not take credit cards in the park. They will not take even cash. You'll have to do this through the banks before you get in.
Do these stations like Sirena and San Pedro, do they have phones now?
Sirena does have a phone, and the concession at Sirena, sometimes if the weather permits, they sell things, and sometimes you can swipe a credit card there, but there's no way of telling if it's going to work or not, so it's very difficult. It's remote, and communication there are still hard, but the park, the administration will know which would be the best way to contact them. They usually have a CB radio.
So in the old days, people could just walk in, but it seems like to me that having the local guides might help that mentality. You know, you're putting to work some of the people that live around there in the ecotourism industry. So that might what do you think about that? Does that promote some of the goodwill a little bit towards the conservation efforts, having people employed, bringing people in, or no?
There's everything. There are some guides that now in the COVID, they turned back to their old ways of gold mining and poaching. There are some other there are other guides that kept on, that they did change, and they started protecting more. There are some other guides that decided, oh no, we have to try to feed all the people. We have to be people friendly. So they went out and make peccary killings to feed the families that didn't have ways of food.
As a gringo, should you follow everything your guide does?
I wouldn't follow blindly to a guide. I have my guides that I do respect. I have guides that I really dislike. I think words of mouth would be the best thing. And you get to talk to a guide, and you can ask him questions of how's this going to be, how am I going to be safe, or I want a very thrilling trip. I want to be swimming across rivers, and I know there's crocodiles, or I'll be wanting to swim. So you can ask. I mean, it's just like hiring anyone else that you're going to hire for some specific job. I mean, there's all sorts of people, and you might as well talk to these people before you decide to hire them and see whether they're your cup of tea or no. Or you can ask for references. I'm sure just like you find in hotels.com, whatever, they got references. I'm sure there's the same way that you will find references. Again, I have my few guys that I trust. There are some other guys that I would not trust.
Well, we'll put a link up to the protocol, some of the phone numbers to call, and then some of the guides you suggest. And so basically, you would fly into San Jose probably, and then take a bus or hire a bus down to one of the neighboring towns, either Sierpe or Puerto Jimenez, somewhere around there. And then
right.
And then there's some places you can hike in or take a boat into the park.
Right.
Both of the ways in are nice. They're different. The boat is, you get to see the coastline and Llorona, and then the hike in from Los Patos is about 12 miles, and you'll probably see some wildlife on that hike in. Mm-hmm. So that's a nice way to do it too.
You'll see a different type of forest. Yeah, it is beautiful.
Well, so I'll put up a link to GoFundMe for anybody that wants to donate to Andrés and his conservation efforts. I think this is a good time to say thank you to Andrés for being with us today. I do hope that people listening, if they've never been to Corcovado, look into it and consider donating something. Thank you very much, Andrés, for being on the Natural Reward podcast.
Thank you, Owen. I really appreciate the time.
For more information, go to naturalreward.com where you can leave comments and find links and references. I'm your host, Owen Gilbert. Thank you for listening.